Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast. I'm Dan Hilton, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by one half of the Empire co-head coaching duo. We already heard from Charlie Hoppus, but this time it's Anthony Nuñez. How's it going today, Anthony?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Well, we're going to, from now on, basically call you Coach Nuñez because that's what you've been for a lot. And I say a lot, and that's not hyperbole, a lot of players in the New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania areas. Coach Nuñez, because again, that's what you've been for so much of your time in Ultimate. And the place to start, we're going to start at the very end, actually. You are one of the co-head coaches of New York Empire. So for those who are maybe just listening to the Empire part of this, the last few weeks for the Empire against Raleigh and that double overtime win in Pittsburgh, that means that a playoff spot is locked up. So I think the big question with the Empire moving forward, sure, will you overcome Boston being the final regular season hurdle to overcome? And will that mean hosting? Maybe. But as far as getting into the playoffs and then succeeding a back-to-back championship, potentially, what needs to happen between now and those playoffs to have this team prepared to try to make that championship run?
So we're going to treat the two Boston games like they're playoff games for us. Now that we're in the playoffs, that pressure is off. We would like to earn the home game in the playoffs. And in order to get us there and focused, we've got to take it obviously one game at a time, but we're treating Boston like they're our first playoff opponent. And we're going to obviously go strong and try to go all out for it.
Yeah, I mean, there are challenges left. And as far as you joining a team that had a bit of turnover, of course, on the O-line, as well as some new face on the D-line, but the core is still the one that's coming off that championship prior to the COVID shutdown. What were some of the challenges in being a new face on that team that, again, had a similar core, but the same goal of repeating as champions?
So I'm lucky enough to have a great co-coach with Charlie. And both of us have our strengths and our weaknesses, and they are often, we highlight each other really well. And going into this, we game planned with Brian Jones, who also is somebody who we both know really well and respect. And we heard and saw from the videos what worked, what didn't work for them. Obviously, they had a perfect season, which is something hard to do in this league. But we still knew that there was going to be some challenges of, one, earning the players' respect right away, and two is just building a game plan that is just slightly different enough for the players to be comfortable, but also have some similarities so that we can highlight their strengths and their weaknesses. Again, I can't emphasize enough how much it helps to have Charlie there, because Charlie's one of the best at reading players and people and talking to them and getting the most out of them by helping them talk about any kind of things that they feel that they need to get off their chest. I like strategy. I like working with the players one-on-one, talking to them, but Charlie is really one of those guys who can deep dive into into their lives and be able to motivate them in that sense.
Yeah, I want to send people back to the few weeks ago, the episode we did with him. You could hear in that conversation just his EQ is completely off the charts. So yeah, we end it with talking to professionals, guys who have big boy jobs or adult jobs, and they go to work and all these different things. So those challenges are different than many of the players you've worked with throughout your career at a youth level. So we're going to actually start before your whole coaching career, which spans 23 years. We want to start with where you began your Ultimate journey, and probably the most famous place to start playing the sport, and that is Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey, the birthplace of Ultimate. I think those who are listening to this kind of show already have some understanding of what Maplewood, New Jersey, and Columbia High School means to Ultimate. You graduated when the sport was just shy of 30 years old. So how much of a part does Ultimate play in the student body actually at Columbia High School and the school's claim to fame as a whole? Does Ultimate, as silly as it sounds, does Ultimate really matter at Columbia High School, or does it matter to us in Ultimate that Columbia High School is that place?
So that's a great question. When I graduated CHS in 98, it was we had an A team and a B team. We had just started having an A team and a B team. We had some middle school kids who were playing, and that was all organized and run by players. So everything like coaching, captaining, everything was done by the players. And I was lucky enough to be a captain there for my last 2 years of high school. And I got to coach with, then play with and captain with some of my closest friends who are still my closest friends to this day. Then as the years went on, I guess it was around like 2003, 2004 is when it became a lot more popular within the high school itself. And we still had an A team and a B team. We call it varsity and JV, but they're not school affiliated sports. They're clubs. And we had started getting a very popular group of people involved, and where we were able to draw more attention was like through brothers and sisters who played. And that group of friends brought other friends and got them involved. And now, coming to like from 2005 all the way up to now 2021, we have, I say we because I'm an alumnus, but I don't coach there anymore. We have, I think it's close to 200 kids involved in some way, shape, or form, either through middle school or high school, which is a pretty large number. Both the high school and the both at CHS and at Westfield, they have a huge middle school program, and the state finals. If you watch the games on Ulti World, it was a jam-packed stadium of fans during the tail ends of a pandemic, where like they're cheering their heads off. It was full on like crowds, Westfield side packed, CHS's side packed, and we were at CHS's football stadium. So it was quite the scene. And if you had told me in like 1994, when I first started playing, that I was going to be coaching in a jam-packed stadium for a high school state finals, I probably would have just laughed at you. But it's gotten pretty big at that school. They honored us with the Sports Hall of Fame. So they put the entire CHS program in the Sports Hall of Fame. The inventors of Ultimate are both Buzzy Hellring, unfortunately passed away when he was in college, but his sister is still actively involved with like spreading the word about Ultimate and being the historian for it. And Joel Silver, who's a world famous producer, he's also a big name that is associated with it, which gives it a lot of clout and respect.
Well, moving on for you, you attended college at William Patterson in New Jersey. Not necessarily an ultimate hotbed in that location, but eventually your path took you to coaching, which again, you've done for 23 years. How did you first get into coaching? I mean, obviously you're a student of the game. You clearly hear that from even your first response, but how did coaching become your calling?
So after I graduated, we graduated about 12 or 13 seniors my senior year, but my closest friend, Emilio Panache, was a rising junior and a captain of the team. And so was my friend, Matt Kushner. And so Emilio, his senior year, I was helping out a little bit his junior year, but then his senior year, he wanted a coach, like a physical coach there. And I was nearby. This is also, he still had on the team, like some of my closest friends who I had developed like a family relationship with Emilio and Raju Prasad, who's a very well-known Ultimate person he's now in the Chicago area, but also the Triangle area. And we helped build that program up from the graduating class in 98 to then the graduating class in 2000 being like a fifth place at youth nationals ranked team. So that's how I got into coaching. It was like, hey, my friend needs a solid and I'm interested in being a coach. I'm not playing much in college. So let's jump on in and let's help out the program that's a major part of my life.
Well, a very successful tenure as the coach of Columbia High School, including first place at 2008 Eastern High School Championship. And you also named the 2010 New Jersey State Coach of the Year. What were your goals for yourself when you first took that position? And then did those change over the course of your tenure there?
So my goal has always been develop youth players to play at their potential. And my goal has always been to let the kids develop being leaders, athletes, and also spread the word of what this sport means to me. And I tell every player this when they come into any of my youth programs and even in the upper programs, is once they play on a team that is coached by me, they're now a member of my second family, and that means a lot to me. So I try to make sure that I keep in touch with almost every player that I can. And, there's going to be times where we lose touch, but when we see each other, we're always really super happy to have each other around. And, that's always been my goals. I let the players set the goals for the teams so that we know how we can adjust as coaches. And I say we because I've always had some help with coaching. Ben Hyam, who was the same year as me in high school, has helped coach CHS with me. And then when I left, he took over CHS. We let the players develop that personality of the team and what their goals are. So in 2005, we went to the finals of the Eastern Championship. And it was like the first time that CHS gave Amherst like a serious run in a serious game. I think we lost by like 1 or 2. And the leaders there set the precedent that the other teams wanted to be successful, but we never set our goals to be just winning, because if you do that, then you're missing the whole point of what developing youth is.
One of the players you had at Columbia High School, I remember when I was in college, I'm again a college player and I play against Columbia High School. And there was a player with incredible pulls, the best I had ever seen in person. And he was a high schooler. He also skied me a few times because he's a tremendous athlete in that game, if I remember right. That, of course, was Marquez Brownlee. And as I said, his pulls have always been great from the time he was a teenager. His athleticism has also always been through the roof. But how do you think he's improved in his days since Columbia High School? You also had him at DEVYL. You also had him in the Rumble as well. So again, you've seen him day to day for years and years and years and years. But how has he improved since those early days at Columbia High School?
So Marquez is one of those people. Every year I feel like he gets taller. He was like a little shorter than me when I met him his sophomore year. He played on our B team the freshman year and sophomore year. And then he made A his junior year, where he was like about my height. He had like shoulder level layouts. He had good throws. He was a little on the raw side for decision making, but like quiet kid who really knew how to play. And you're right, his pulls have always been filthy. But where he's developed the most is now he is a full-on checked-in player who understands what options are the right thing for him for throwing, and also he's not just a highlight reel anymore. He's a super strong, solid player who makes all of the right cuts, knows how to jump out the building because he's ridiculously athletic, but he also knows that he has full range on his throws. And he is a remarkable break thrower, which most people don't even realize how much or how easily he can break the mark, just with his big, long, lanky body, but also he's got a great around throw backhand. The other thing that he still hasn't even come close to hitting his ceiling and this year he's having a fantastic year with Empire. And once he gets even to that like next level, I think he's going to be a superstar. He's already a superstar, but he's going to be like a mega superstar by then. He's one of the key pieces on our defense this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Marquez has been not a talented player all around, but as he continues to improve, and as you've said, his break throws, that very memorable moment in the championship game 2 years ago when he gets the layout, that's when everybody has the pictures of, that's the highlight. But it's the break throw, to me, again, somebody who appreciates the art of the throw, that's more incredible. It's the one that sets up that break two that I think it was Sam Feder who finally winds up scoring that. And yeah, it's just an incredible break throw that comes right off of the presence, the peace of mind to be able to lay out like that, condition yourself to stand right up and then immediately break the mark like that. It's a testament to Marquez and the player that he's continuing to become. Speaking of, again, we'll stay back in the high school level, but now chronological order is kind of being thrown out the window because you coach in multiple places at all times over the last now 14 to 16 or 23 years. So on to Westfield High School we go, hometown of Maddie Weintraub. And so you've been with him for many, many, many years now for DEVYL, as well as Westfield, as well as with the Rumble and the Empire. So I would ask the same question. How has he improved as a player since you've known him? And not even, I guess, for Maddie, not necessarily as a player, but also as a person, as a leader on the field, which is something I think behind the scenes, I've watched Maddie grow as a leader.
Yeah. So I didn't get to coach Maddie at Westfield. I did get to coach him with DEVYL. Maddie started playing at a camp called Campus Kids, out of New Jersey, where the Westfield, the Westfield founder / coach, Ryan Boleen, started working with him. And so when Maddie first tried out for DEVYL, we looked at him as like this guy who is a hard worker. Like he was a good player, but he was the hardest worker on the field. And he also knew that like his role was play defense, work hard, be that pesky physical defender. And how he's developed is he kept that work ethic, which is a legendary work ethic for anybody on the field. But he's also developed himself into being a handler. He was a cutter when we first started working with him. And now he is a like break option handler who is on top of that one of the best defensive handlers definitely in our division, because he can contain the other handlers very well. But then on top of that, when the disc turns, he's moving it quickly and doing a lot of quick give and goes. The one thing that I can say is that Maddie, both as a person and as a player, is always constantly working to improve himself. He is he's a very smart player because he's also a coach on top of being an ultimate player. And I can tell that he's also a fantastic teacher, which is what he does in his non-ultimate life. He really cares about the kids. He cares about his teammates. He cares about everybody. And he's just one of the most genuine people that I've ever come across.
Yeah. And speaking of Maddie, you also coached him in a brief stint at Rutgers. And that was your first time delving into the college scene. You also met up with Josue Aloro at that location, Rutgers, where you were with him, both Rutgers and the Rumble. Then later on in his career, what was the difference between coaching the high school level to the college level, if there were any major differences?
So it's definitely a huge difference. In high school, you see kids like 3-4 times a week, every day after school. College is a little different because of college schedules. You have late night practices. Maybe it's twice a week. Tournaments are different because you're going to these tournaments with pretty much grown men, as opposed to going to tournaments where there's high school kids, and it's a different athleticism. People are developed there. The skill level is You still have to work with the skill level, and you still have to improve most players' skill level, because a lot of players at that time especially don't have an ultimate background when they first start playing in college. I was very lucky to have that at Rutgers. But like Josue is a perfect example of somebody who didn't have high school coaching and get to play at states and get to play on DEVYL. Mm-hmm. He came to Rutgers knowing that he wanted to play ultimate, but was like just a very fast cutter who was really good at defense. And he has I think he has a wrestling background. Mm-hmm. So he was just an athlete who came into ultimate, realized how much he loved it, and played so much ultimate to improve himself as a player. So, it's working with people who are already developed athletes and improving their skill, as opposed to working with high school kids who are just starting to learn how to be athletes, as well as teaching them the disc skills.
Yeah, let's go back to the high school level, if you will. So before we do go back and hit the pros, I do want to talk some DEVYL, which we keep saying DEVYL, but for context, that stands for Delaware Valley Youth League, particularly where you've been with the U20. So that is, again, youth ultimate. What is the process? And you can speak about Nori in this way. Nori Toe, who's been around the Empire for a few years, had a huge block against Pittsburgh last week. So a career highlight for him. And then Matt Labar, who's new to the Empire, but he'll be 21 soon. As far as delving those players, they're no longer, we'll call them Delaware Valley Youth League alum. But what is the process of evaluating each player, young player, and figuring out what they need and what you need them to do to take the next step? As in, some players have AUDL or high level potential, like a Nori, like a Matt Labar, and then some are just good for their age group now and may not even play in college or at a next level. So how do you evaluate which each young player and which players need the extra push and which players are just the ones that are kind of floating at that level?
Yeah. So DEVYL, one of the great things about DEVYL is that we just actually became a nonprofit like about 2 to 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But we've been in existence since 2007 when Ryan Thompson and I founded DEVYL. How we handle for the YCC team is we have tryouts. We just started doing tryouts in March. We usually have anywhere from 50 to 75 kids trying out. And I bring in scouts and people who I like to call them counselors. I bring in counselors to help coach the players so that I can take that step back and evaluate what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they need to work on, what role I think that they could play on the team. We also have we call them developmental, spelled devil in the beginning, team that allows players to work on and develop their skills so that when they are ready to go into the U17 team or the U20 team, they can contribute onto that team before they graduate high school. What goes into it is we look for not just who's the right player, but also who's the right personality and who's the right teammate. Nori is somebody who he's a track runner on top of being an ultimate player. He ran track for his high school and then he ran track at Montclair State. So he was a very fast player, but he was also hungry to develop it and become a top-notch player. He wanted to be one of the best players in the area. And he, similar to Maddie, he had that work ethic where he wanted not only to be on the team, but also to develop himself into something big. Labar was a more natural talent who came in. He was in 8th grade when he started playing DEVYL on the U17 B team for DEVYL. And he was, big, strong kid who could throw really well. And his brother played ultimate, not for us, but for Pennsbury. And he really enjoyed the game and loved the game, and he fit in perfectly with the team as well. So it's an easy thing when they love the game the thing that I liked most about Nori was I said, Nori, all you have to do to make DEVYL this year is get one layout block at this tryout. I said, and I will give you your I will give you your spot right then and there. And he did it. Like, he went out there and he got it on. It might have even been Tristan Yarder, honestly. Like, it was not an easy matchup for him to get. No. It was actually one of the better players on DEVYL, but it wasn't Tristan. But he got it on this really good player, and he sat up and he was beaming, and everybody was pumped on the sideline, similar to what he did against Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, sign Nori up. He's done. He did his thing. And, you know, he was a role player for the team, but he definitely was a breath of fresh air on the sidelines. I think he might have even gotten the Spirit Award at YCCs that year. That's how much of a teammate and how great he was.
You did a lot of winning with DEVYL so far. 2010 first place, and 2016 second place finalist at Youth Club Championships. And I would ask, as far as motivating those kind of players, how do you use the prestige of the program now? Again, founded in 2007. So a lot of these players, some of them, now you're getting to that age where they were not born when DEVYL was created. I mean, I don't want to make us feel old, but that's that's what we're starting to talk about. So how do you use the prestige of that program to motivate the players? Are there other methods? It's just a desire because you have to try out, and it means a commitment.
Yeah. So what we do is we remind them that we are a program that isn't just there to win. We're there to create a community. And it's a pretty large community with a very successful background in players. In the Atlantic Division, I think there's only Tampa. Nope, wrong. Every team, maybe DC. Every team but DC has a DEVYL alum on it. Atlanta's got Dave Perry. Tampa had Matt Bode. And Matt was on like one of the first teams that we started with that. And then, you know, New York has all the Nori, Weintraub, Marquez, that whole group. And Philly has a bunch with Sean Mott and that grouping. So and Tristan Yarder, of course, and Harry McNamara on Pittsburgh. So we have some key names and players there. We also have Trent Dillon, who was a spinner in the AUDL with the first year that they won the championship, who played 3 years with the DEVYL program. And that was kind of his first youth club experience. He won the championship with us in 2010. We have such a large alumni base that it helps get the word out for players that if they want to be at that next level, then they definitely are going to they should join DEVYL. I should give a shout out to Ryan Boleen as well as the rest of the DEVYL board, because we all work really hard to promote DEVYL through social media, through everything, through video, through organizing events. We run the New Jersey State Championships. We do all of this stuff, and DEVYL's name is synonymous with New Jersey Ultimate and Pennsbury Ultimate, I guess, too, because the Pennsbury players always wind up playing with DEVYL.
Yeah, and so now we're not just talking New Jersey. I know we started in New Jersey, but we're talking Pennsylvania as well. We're talking about that whole region. And of course, Charlie Hoppes, he is a Pennsylvania guy more than anything. Yep. And so it was a bit of New Jersey matching up with Pennsylvania. Philadelphia Patrol, now the Phantom since 2016, with Charlie qualifying for USA Ultimate Club Nationals on 2 occasions. How did those experience alongside Charlie help prepare you for the Empire together?
So they qualified for nationals 3 years, 2 years with me and Charlie, but 1 year without me. And that's because, you know, Charlie is the fuel that fires that whole program. And it's not just Philadelphia Patrol / Phantom. It's POP, which is the Philly Open program, which is Charlie's baby. He is between the two of us, it was easy for us to get the player buy-in. The Philly players are known for that grit and grind, and they want to win. And it's just putting the pieces together. And I was lucky enough to meet Charlie, and instantly it was a relationship that it's been a lifetime relationship for sure. You know, he and I are super close friends. We talk to each other outside of Ultimate stuff. We talk to each other about Ultimate stuff. And I didn't think I would get like such a great friend out of this, but I definitely did. He's been a major part of my life, and hopefully he feels the same way. I'm pretty sure he does. And it's even to the point now where like our parents just love my parents love having Charlie around, and his parents are just wonderful people. So yeah, it was an easy coaching formation, I guess is the best way to put it. Because we are both just passionate people who love this sport and love building a community of family members that we also call players.
Yeah, then the final ultimate question I have for you here. Again, your first pro job was with the MLU from 2013 and 2016. So as I said, I warned everybody about a half an hour ago, chronological order, to throw that out the window. So that was when you were New York Rumble coach. And how did that experience at the pro level? And, you know, we've been talking about everything you've done on the youth scene, but how did that experience in particular, you know, the solo job, prepare you for than what the ADL has become? Because again, I'm not going to get into too much of what MLU and ADL and the different things, but I mean, I was there with you at the MLU and you were there for the ADL. Now we're both in the same location, but for the MLU, yeah, I mean, certainly those experiences were getting into professionalism, but I guess more broadly, how has the sport changed as far as the top level when it was just MLU and AUDL, and now it is simply just the AUDL amassing this mass amount of talent and having the rules be different than club and development? And yeah, I mean, there's a lot going into the changes.
Sure. So the programs and the clubs are organized and ran are very different from the MLU to the AUDL. AUDL is the AUDL itself is hands-on, but not as hands-on as the MLU was. Every organization within the MLU was run exactly the same way because there was no such thing as really an owner of the team.
Right. Everything was through Philadelphia. League, right.
Yeah. Everything was through the league. Everything was organized through the league with everything. So every team, you know, the stadiums were paid for through the league. Jerseys were handled through the league. So it was a lot different in that sense. The Empire have a great way of making you feel like you're a part of a family. You know, they do all the little things from like Barbara Stevens making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the players because some of them love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, to like also just making sure that you feel like you want to be there, and you definitely do because they handle themselves so professionally. The MLU, it was a great experience for me because I got to learn some different strategies. You know, that's where I started to learn about double teaming. I started to learn a little bit about what to do with that large of a field, being able to sub on timeouts and that sort of thing. But where it differed was just the overall atmosphere. It was a very professional atmosphere. It's just a different type of professional atmosphere.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a great experience, but it definitely taught me a little bit more about how to deal with, I don't want to say a player's ego, but like a player's confidence.
Right.
A lot of these players are at the highest level for a reason, and they have very strong confidence within themselves, and how to deal with that confidence and make sure that you can walk that fine line of getting the most out of them without killing any of their confidence, and making sure that they also still feel comfortable on the field.
Yeah. All right, Anthony, let's have a little bit of fun as we go to try to wrap up the show with a few fun questions for you. First being, Do you prefer stand-up live, or do you get the same enjoyment watching on Netflix or HBO or Comedy Central or wherever?
So I enjoy stand-up live more than I do on TV, but I do watch a lot of stand-up comedy on TV, YouTube, and everything else. I took a stand-up class in college, and my final was I had to do a stand-up routine at Caroline's in New York City.
Yeah.
And that was both terrifying and fantastic, to the point where I started doing some open mics after that. But then coaching too many ultimate teams and my real life job was like something had to take a back seat, and that was obviously stand up. But stand up live is fantastic. I highly suggest that if somebody's in New York City, they should definitely go to the Cellar, because you never know who's going to drop in, and it's always a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I will have to ask. I mean, if you don't want to give away your favorite, because I feel like it's unfair to ask somebody who their favorite comedian is unfair, because then it kind of labels you as a certain kind of brand. And with how much that you watch, I'm assuming there's a lot of different names you could throw at me. And I don't want to pigeonhole you to just picking one, because I don't want you to take on that style.
Right. Yeah. So, oh boy, I go in these phases. So I was, and this is kind of like everybody's going to answer it this way kind of thing, because John Mulaney is so hot right now. But John Mulaney is a great storyteller, comedian. He got me really into this story about his mother meeting Bill Clinton, and his first time going to meet Bill Clinton. And it was like, wow, this story, this buildup is amazing. And like, you don't want to like turn it off. You don't want to pause it, because you know that like there's several punches within that story. So I really like John Mulaney a lot. I'm also a big, I wouldn't say big. I am enjoying a lot of Jim Norton, who is a comedian who was famous for his time with Opie and Anthony, and he has his own talk show on XM radio with Sam Roberts, I think is his last name. Mm-hmm. But Jim Norton is a comedic genius, and he is not as popular as he should be. He's one of those guys who everything he says is funny, and he made me like belly laugh several times. He's got 2 great books out there too, which are very, very, very funny.
You see, I'm a little bit of a homebody, so what I can watch is where I prefer to be. So I tend to, whether it was Brian Wiegand and Jim Gaffigan as I was, a little younger, and now I think Tom Segura, that's the name I'm going to throw out there too, is as we've kind of thrown a few names at you. Tom Segura, I think, is at the top of his game at the moment. So to me, he's a hot commodity. But let's switch to some of your sports fandom. You're a fan of the Celtics, Yankees, and 49ers. Now, It sounds like you like teams that like to win, or is there a different origin story for each of those teams?
Sure. So I am born and raised in the 80s and 90s. During that time period, all of my favorite players were drafted the year I was born, which I was born in October of 79. So except for Larry Bird was technically drafted in 78, but he played 79, 80. And his first game was around my birthday, actually. Joe Montana, also a huge fan of. Don Mattingly was one of my all-time favorite baseball players growing up. So each one has their own origin. Yankees is because in my house, you're a Yankees fan. And Don Mattingly was somebody who I was always really impressed with, because he was the Yankee captain. He was this persona that you looked at, and that was what a true professional baseball player was like. He handled himself well. He interacted with the fans. One of my favorite clips is him taking popcorn out of one of the fans' popcorn thing and eating it. Joe Montana is a gamer. He's a winner. And then when Steve Young replaced him, same thing. They brought this leadership and this try hard, work hard attitude and win. But my favorite story about Joe Montana, of course, is when they're all in the huddle in this championship game, and it's the NFC championship, and they're down a touchdown, or they need a touchdown to win, and everybody's stressed out and focused. And Joe Montana says in the huddle, "I think that's John Candy sitting in the front row." Huh? Who would have thought John Candy came all the way down here to watch us play? And then everybody kind of just relaxed, and he threw like the touchdown pass to win the game. It's like, bringing that humor and that desire into the huddle was just a thing. I grew up, I was young. The last time the Celtics won the championship before 2008 was in 86.
Yeah. Maybe the greatest basketball team ever, arguably.
I think so.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah, so I grew up a Larry Bird fan, but I was 6 years old when they won a championship, so it was like hard for me to remember. But I just the work ethic again, similar to like Maddie, Nori, all these guys who I'm coaching right now. Larry Bird had that work ethic that nobody else had in the league. And he also had that killer instinct to win. And whether his back was like falling apart, he was still going out there and winning. There was, I forget what story it is, where he talks about how he hurt his leg. He might have broke it, or he wasn't sure if it was broken or not. And he goes on to the, he had a concussion. It was. And he got on the table, and the medic was like, "Nope, you're not going in." The athletic trainer said, "No, you're definitely not going in." And he said, "Okay, all right, no problem." And their back was turned, and he jumped back into the game. And the first play he makes is him diving after a ball and pushing it back in. He said he did that mostly because he wanted to pump up his teammates, but also because he would do whatever it takes to get that win. And they won the game. So also one of the greatest smack talkers I've ever read about and seen. So
yeah, you have to think with Larry Bird that if we had what they call those rest days now, where players just sit out for rest and recovery, if we had those kind of things now, Larry Bird would have been 3 or 4, maybe I'd say 1 or 2 more championships, but he would have definitely been 3 or 4 years extended his career, which
maybe he wouldn't have probably done it. So
exactly right. He would have used to do it. That's true. Okay, well, Anthony, the final thing, the final frontier to go to, the final area, we talked about this a bunch before we started the interview. And I want to say also, speaking of origin stories, you're also adept in the art of the comic book. Again, you and I could go long on DC, on Marvel, on different things. But if Anthony Nuñez had a superpower or superpowers, what do you think they would be?
So I am a big advocate on. So you talked about how you're a Flash fan. That's actually my favorite DC character. My favorite Marvel character is Gambit. So I would probably like to have super speed, but also the ability to use kinetic energy to throw things. Obviously, I'm a Frisbee player, so I like to throw things.
Yeah.
Those two superpowers would be absolutely fantastic, especially the combo of the two, because then you can get away from everybody, or you could go back in time, like by going as fast as you possibly can. There's something to be said about, especially if I was still playing Ultimate, being able to take the disc and throw it as far as I possibly can with that energy, and then on top of that, being able to roast every defender possible. It would be obviously a cheat code, but it's
unfortunately the rule is you can't throw and catch on your own, so that's unfortunately that's a travel, and we just have to have that rule change where you can throw and then catch your own disc.
Sure. Or I just throw it off of somebody and then run and get it, obviously, like just like an inbounds pass in basketball.
Yeah, certainly. I'd love to go back in time and get rid of even the throws I threw out last night in pickup. I'd like to go back in time and try to do some of those again. But Anthony, what I do appreciate was all the time that you gave me on the podcast today. We hope people not only got to know you, but you help excite everybody as the Empire continue to work on through the playoffs. So on a very serious note, congratulations on the season you've had so far and best of luck in the playoffs. But thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. And I would be happy to always come back. So
thanks to Coach Anthony Nuñez, and thanks to you, the listeners. And this wraps up another edition of the New York Empire podcast. From the entire New York Empire family, we'll talk to you soon.